I'm Christine, and welcome to this prenatal yoga video. We are here in the third trimester, and we will be doing a practice to sort of help prepare for the birth. So if you haven't already checked it out, I've got two other prenatal yoga videos. There's the first trimester and the second trimester, and you can see how there's been a bit of a progression in my own practice, because that's what this is. This is my practice. I'm not a prenatal yoga teacher. So let's get that that cat out of the bag right away. But I did want to share how I have been adapting and some of the things that I've been getting from my yoga practices that I've been doing with prenatal yoga teachers, and how that's been adjusting my practice as a teacher myself and as someone who's trying to maintain some movement throughout my pregnancy. So one thing, this is my second pregnancy, right? And one thing that is a constant theme throughout the last pregnancy and then again in this one is the fact that I know I need to slow down, right? I know I need to slow down. I know that my body is getting bigger. I know that I need to conserve my energy. I know that a lot of my energy is going to the baby. You know, my body is prioritizing giving nutrients to baby before giving nutrients to me. And yet every time that I slow down and I go, okay, good, I'm slowing down, I'm doing a good job, I then realize I actually need to slow down more. So that's sort of the theme here today, is that every time we think we've slowed down, sometimes we need to slow down more. So sometimes the mind has an idea of what kind of trajectory we should be on, but the body and the reality have a different idea as to what that trajectory is. So every pregnant body is different. So welcome mama, welcome baby to your practice today. Today's practice is something that I'm doing in my body to help prepare for birth and to keep my body feeling mobile. It may or may not feel like things that are appropriate for your body. You might feel like you can do more. I'm definitely going to tell you right now that we're not going to be doing much because that's my body. My body doesn't feel good doing even adapted sun salutations anymore. Every time I try to fold forward in some way from a standing position, I get very uncomfortable. So that's not working for me anymore. So everything's happening down on the mat. There might be other considerations in your body that you need to factor into your practice. And I think that's one of the beautiful life lessons of pregnancy, that everything is so unique to each individual and each pregnancy. So you can join me here with this, and we will just get our bodies moving a little bit. And if something doesn't feel right for you, feel free to swap it out for something else, to do something else entirely, to modify it in a way that perhaps I haven't suggested. This is all about you listening to your body. All right. So we might need a few props today. I like to have a bolster and a pillow for a side lying Shavasana at the end, right? And you might want to have some blocks or a blanket nearby for when we do a squat. You might need to have a little bit of support underneath your heels. I'm going to start by coming onto our hands and our knees. I'm just starting with some basic cat-cows. Now, you might need to put something underneath your knees to be comfortable here. So feel free to grab your blanket and place it underneath your knees for a little bit of added comfort, some added cushion. And just like we would do in any yoga practice, we're inhaling to lift the head and the tailbone. And exhaling to round. And try to just kind of lift belly in, lift baby in towards you. Obviously, the movements are not going to be maybe as full and complete as they are when you're not pregnant. If you have any wrist sensitivity in your pregnancy, carpal tunnel syndrome is a common enough thing. You can always place your hands a little bit further forward, so there's a little bit less weight on your wrists. And this is also just a great position whenever you're on your hands and your knees to help alleviate any back pain, to let the weight of baby kind of fall down and away from the spine, get it gently lifted out of the pelvis, because that's what we're starting to feel in the third trimester, is this heaviness, this weight upon our own structure. while our own structure is also loosening up and trying to prepare for the birth process. So that can create a series of aches and pains and discomforts. So it can feel nice to just get on the hands and knees for a moment. Good. We'll come to a neutral. And now it's like you're wagging a tail a little bit, but we're just going to hold it every time. So you're going to move your hips to the left, turn your gaze to the left so that you're shortening the left side of your body and trying to lengthen the right side of the body. There's a lot of feeling very short and compressed at this stage of pregnancy. So it can be kind of nice to stretch out the sides of the body and feel a little bit longer, at least for a moment. And we'll wag our tail the other way, hips and gaze to the right, shortening up the right side of the body as you give the left side of the body a little bit of a stretch. A few nice deep breaths there. Good. And coming back to center, maybe you'd like to move with your breath. Exhaling as you wag to one side, inhaling to neutral. Exhaling the other way. Inhaling neutral. And go back and forth a couple more times. Good. And we'll come to neutral. And we'll take a downward facing dog. So downward dog in my body feels pretty nice because I do have back pain and pelvic pain. So it's great for me to get the weight of baby completely out of those structures and to flip upside down. But I will admit that it depends on the day because if I'm having heartburn, being upside down just aggravates that heartburn. If you've got blood pressure concerns, this might not feel good at all. You might rather be on your hands and knees. You might rather do your downward dog sort of like a dolphin pose on your forearms. Um, you just might not find that you like flipping upside down at all. Also, if you happen to be further along and you need to try and put baby into position, baby is still upside down or isn't upside down, which is what we want, right? We want the baby to be head down. Kind of getting onto your hands and your knees and getting into a downward facing dog can potentially help kind of give the baby a little bit of incentive to do a little flip for you. That said, if you've struggled to get baby into position and baby's now in position, maybe don't do downward dog so they don't go back out of position, because that can happen too sometimes. So just assessing your own situation. There's no form in the way that I'm doing my downward dogs so much these days, except that I'm enjoying having some strength in my arms, really pushing into the arms, rolling the shoulders away from the ears. I'm pedaling out the heels. It's a great way for me to get a stretch from the back of the legs when I know I can't really do forward folds. And my feet are definitely wider than hip distance apart, which is how I would normally do downward dog. So all kinds of modifications, all kinds of allowances. Keeping in mind that pregnancy is a very temporary moment in your life. I mean, provided you don't have a bazillion children and you're not constantly pregnant. But each pregnancy is also just a short time. And we need to slow ourselves down. We need to listen to what's going on in our own bodies. Good. You can slowly bring your knees back down again. You can walk your hands in towards your knees, and we're going to come into a squat. So I'm just going to turn to face the camera. But from your knees, you can have your toes tucked under. You might want to spread your feet out a little bit wider, and then you can push up into a squat-like position. So the knees can open wide, and you can open your feet wide. And if your heels don't come to the ground, you have a couple of options. You can grab a blanket and place it underneath your heels, just so that you have a little bit of somewhere to put some of your weight, right? So that you feel a little bit more steady and balanced. Another option is to actually support yourself, your bum, on a block so that you can feel a little bit more ease here. So this is a great position for helping to open up the pelvis, right? I like to rock a bit side to side. So I'm actually not putting something under my heels right now so that I can kind of get one heel down, shift to one side, and then go the other way. All right, so it helps to open up the pelvis, to open up the hips. And especially as we're in this final trimester, and I was watching a midwife do a birth class once, and she was talking about how the third trimester, the entire third trimester, really is a preparation for birth. At this stage, for the most part, all baby is doing is growing, putting on weight, and all mommy is doing is getting ready for the labor in terms of mommy's body. So as we come here and we allow our pelvis to open a little bit, if you've been doing any Kegel exercises, right, so we're lifting up from the perineum and then relaxing it down, you want to start putting a little bit more emphasis on the relaxation part, right? Because we want to be able to allow the baby to move through the birth canal and be born. If you're planning a natural birth in that way, a vaginal birth, so that would be something you could focus on now. And being in this position can really help us feel like, okay, we're relaxing those muscles. We're allowing them to open and to sink down. Good. All right. So from here, if you do have something underneath your bum or your heels, you might want to just move it for a moment. We're just going to pop the hips up for a moment and then sink them back down, just to get some more movement through the hips where we're flexing and extending through the hips. Okay, hips up and back down. And then one more time. And back down. So our theme, right? Whenever I've slowed down, I realize I need to slow down more. I always thought, especially when I went into my first pregnancy, that as a yoga teacher, you can come to kneel, I would be maintaining a fairly active practice throughout the entirety of my pregnancy. And it's just not how my body wants to do things. So I've had to kind of come to terms with that and adjust along the way. All right, we're going to sit now in Janasirsasana. So where you have, we'll start with the left leg extended and the right leg is bent, and you can place your foot either to your inner thigh, or if you want it a little further out, you can, whatever works for you here. If you feel a little bit more comfortable in your pelvis by lifting it up with a folded blanket or a pillow or something, feel free to do that as well. And we'll just give ourselves a little bit of twisting here. So you can take your left hand back and use your right hand against your thigh. And you want to emphasize your twist in the thoracic, in the upper spine, in the chest-like area. So roll your shoulders back and allow your right shoulder blade to try and push you around a little bit, like there's a hand on your back, just giving you a little gentle push. And then turn your head to look back as well. And give yourself 3 long breaths there. Now, don't worry about how much you're twisting. There's just a certain amount of limitation. And it might also restrict your breathing a bit. But just the fact that you're even intending in that direction is helpful for the spine. Good, now we'll face the leg. Now, depending on how big your belly is, you may or may not be able to fold forward at least a little bit here. Give yourself 3 breaths, just folding towards your outstretched legs. You're keeping your toes pointing up. The relaxin coursing through your body might be relaxing your joints enough that you need to support the back of the knee. So you could put a little something underneath the back of your knee, like a folded towel or something, just to be sure you're not hyperextending. Good. And now we'll turn, facing more center, and we'll take the left arm to the inside of the left leg. So we're going to use this as a lever to help us open ourselves out to the right. Now you could have just the back of your hand against your leg. You might be getting your elbow. Some people might still feel like they can get their shoulder all the way down there. Don't worry about how far down you're going, but do try to get that twist where you're opening to the left, to the right in this case. And then we'll take that right arm, and if it's comfortable for you, bring it all the way up and overhead so you can get that nice side body stretch at the same time. 3 big breaths right there. Good. On your inhale, come back up. Now take your right hand to the ground behind you. Take your left hand to that right knee. And again, we're going to use the shoulders. Roll them back. And your left shoulder blade just wants to try and push you around a little bit as you turn your gaze back behind you. Nice, tall, long seated twist. 3 breaths. Good. And inhale as you come out. We'll keep the right hand on the floor here. And we'll come into gate pose. So the left toes will just kind of turn in. I'm going to come and stand up on my right knee. I'm picking up my bum now and take that left arm up and overhead. And you can start to squeeze your bum and press your hips forward as you then take your arm back behind you and just do a nice big full body stretch, something you might not always feel like you get a chance to do. You can smile. Good, and gently hinge your hips back down. And we'll do the other side. So switch your legs, right leg out, left knee bent. And adjust. Each side might feel a little bit different. So if you need to prop up, if you need to put a little something underneath your right knee, just make sure that your joints don't feel strained, right? That's a good word. It's like a straining feeling when the joints are being overstretched with all of this relaxin in them. And what I've noticed, I've heard so much talk in prenatal yoga and, some of the contraindications and things that I learned in my yoga teacher trainings, about how there might be a hypermobility in pregnancy. My experience of it is that, yes, the joints might be hypermobile, but all of the musculature is getting tight in an effort to kind of compensate for that. So that's part of why it feels good to stretch, but we do need to be mindful of the joints themselves, right? So make sure the joints feel supported. Put something under your knee, under your pelvis. Don't open your legs so wide if that's better. Whatever's going to work so that your joints feel supported. And then let's try and stretch our muscles. Okay, so let's start with the right hand behind. Left hand can come across your leg if it reaches, right? So you hold on wherever you can. And we're going to use the shoulders, roll them back. And now it's your left shoulder blade that's going to try and push you around as you turn your gaze back. Give yourself 3 breaths. Good. Face your leg. Maybe try and fold forward a little bit so you can get some of the muscles to stretch out the back of the leg. Breathe into what you find. You'll notice we also don't hold any of our stretches for very long. Excuse me. And then again, right arm to the inside of the right leg. Using that as your lever as you open up the left side. And then taking that left arm up and overhead. Enjoying a nice big stretch right here. Good. Inhaling your way up. Left hand comes down behind you so you can support. Right hand will now just give you a little bit of leverage on that left knee. Roll the shoulders back. Use your right shoulder blade to push you around a little bit. And look back. Nice tall spine. But you can unravel, but keep that left hand on the ground. We'll come into our gate pose, turn those right toes down, come stand up on the left knee, pick up your bum, even squeeze your bum a bit as you get your hips to lift up, pressing them forward, and take your right arm up and overhead, even letting it dangle back behind you. Enjoy a smile across your face as your shining belly and baby up to the sky. And go ahead and hinge your hips. Oh, back down. Good. And take both legs out in front of you. All right, so we're going to come into a seated figure 4. So we're trying to get a outer hip stretch or a piriformis stretch. Again, this is some areas that can start to get tight as they compensate for other areas that are getting loose, right? So the muscles might be getting tight through your hips as the pelvis is loosening up and preparing for the birth process. So you gotta get creative sometimes. It's fun to do our figure 4 from a seated position. So I'm just leaning back on my hands. I'll start with the right leg. So you can cross your right ankle over your left knee. And I do want to keep a little bit of a flex in that ankle. I like to say it's like your foot was in a ski boot. You know how you can't move your ankle around in a ski boot? And then you're just going to place it right there without moving your ankle. And toes can even be flexed. And you're pressing the right knee down. If you've got a stretch in your hip, you're in the right place. In order to be able to go deeper, you start to bend the left knee, bringing the foot in. So just finding some leverage here, continuing to roll the shoulders back, getting some lift through the chest. And hopefully you've got some room here for belly to still get a stretch in your hips. Nice long exhales. And there it is. You can slowly release this. Extend the legs. You might want to give them a little shake. If you find the wrists are a bit tender back there, you can always turn your hands into a different angle for your second side. I got my fingers pointing out now. And then we'll go ahead, ski boot in the left foot and ankle. Get that just above the knee. Pressing the knee down, the left knee. And then, in order to go deeper, knowing that this is always available to us, not necessary, just available. So that need to be slowing down is just that recognition that we're in a very specific moment and phase in our lives and in our bodies. Now is not the time to be pushing ourselves, to be looking to advance our practice, to be making any gains physically. Instead, this is about self-care. This is about finding the moments to take care of our bodies so that our bodies can stay as happy and healthy as possible throughout the pregnancy, be as well prepared for the birth, and then have hopefully a easier recovery from that process. Whether you have a vaginal birth or a cesarean, there's a recovery process that we want to feel ready for. Again, you can slowly release that and shake out your legs. Good. And we'll come into a side lying position for a Shavasana. So whether or not you are comfortable lying on your back, it is recommended to lie on your side. If you happen to still feel comfortable lying on your back, you are, of course, more than welcome to do so. And then you might want to place your bolster underneath your knees or underneath your thighs a little bit, and that might be fine. I have officially entered the stage of pregnancy where I am not comfortable on my back anymore, so I'm going to lie down on my side. To do so, though, in order to protect the hips, which are widening and loosening, I am going to place my bolster along the length of the shin so that it's both between my knees and my ankles. Okay. And I got a pillow over here too, because once you're lying on your side, you might find it more comfortable to have a little lift for underneath your head. You may also feel that as your belly gets bigger and heavier, that you'd like to wedge a little something underneath your belly for some support. So don't hesitate to do that, to grab a blanket, put on a pair of socks, whatever you need to do to feel comfortable here, to take a moment of rest before moving on into the rest of your day. Slowing down a little bit more every day. Sometimes that can be the hardest piece of the whole puzzle, as life is still happening. We still have responsibilities and chores and things that we both need and then want to be doing. And as we are slipping into our third trimester, getting closer and closer to the arrival of this new fresh life in our arms, the first priority is just being ready for that moment, which means honoring your body, taking sweet, loving care of it, resting as often as your body asks you to, and ultimately coming to a place of surrender. I'm going to take a few deeper breaths now. Maybe wiggle your fingers and your toes. If you are comfortably lying onto your back, do roll onto your side so that you can push up to sitting from a side lying position. Using the top hand to support. Try not to strain too much through the abdominals. And just coming to sit in any way that feels comfortable for you here. If you want to elevate your hips, you can. And we'll place our hands on our belly here. Just feeling into this light inside of you, or lights if you're carrying multiples. And releasing any judgment you may have towards yourself during this process. Instead, smiling in full loving acceptance that things are unveiling themselves exactly as they should. And bringing your hands together, prayer-like position, thumbs against your sternum, letting your fingers fan out from this place. Gently bowing your head to your hands. Lifting your heart to your thumbs, feeling the heart beating in your chest and your breath upon your fingertips. The lights in me bow to the lights in you. Namaste. So thank you so much for sharing in this third trimester prenatal yoga practice with me. Of course, if you do want to practice more prenatal yoga, do seek out a certified prenatal yoga teacher. And hopefully, I will see you on the mat once baby has arrived. Thank you so much. And if you would like to receive more yoga videos from me, about monthly, I released one yoga video, and then other just mindset insights and inspiring ideas and actionable items to help us tune into our lives and really turn on to the life that most turns us on, then please join my inner circle. You can head over to christine-gannett.com and receive an email from me about once a week with all of these kinds of wonderful goodies. I look forward to seeing you there.